Hello everyone, and welcome back to Ushanka Show, the place you can always learn something new about life in the Soviet Union. In today's video, we're going to try to solve one of the biggest mysteries for anyone who's trying to learn about life in the USSR. Why the Soviet people were so poor? I talked a lot on this channel about how inexpensive was housing in the Soviet Union. It wasn't free, but it was extremely affordable. For the average Soviet family, it will be maximum 10% of the combined income to pay for like 2-room, maybe 3-room apartment. And I believe what we got here is the failure to see the forest that is hiding behind this mighty tree called Soviet housing. People so focused on the topic of cheap Soviet housing that they don't see the rest of the Soviet forest. Take my family, for example. My father Nikolai and my mother Yelena, they both worked full-time. They both were labor union members. So you would think with inexpensive housing, we'll have more than enough money to purchase a car, maybe go for nice vacations, wear nice clothes. But no, it wasn't the case. When I was asking my mom, when I became interested in all this topic, of course, when I was a kid, I didn't care. She said, we had to buy everything on payments. We purchased a refrigerator for 250 rubles and we paid it off in 6 months. After that, we purchased a black and white TV on payments. Then we purchased a vacuum cleaner on payments. So my family was buying everything on payments. Although they both were working, both were labor union members, it kind of doesn't make sense, right? So I stumbled on this interesting letter. It was written to the newspaper called Komsomolskaya Pravda, the Komsomol Truth, back in 1975. And it was a letter in response of the article that was called Человек и помидор, кто кого? A human and a tomato, who will win? Unfortunately, I wasn't able to locate the article, but it sounds like it was discussion about should people try to have additional income? Is that important to have more money in the family? It would be nice to find that article. But anyways, this lady wrote a letter as a response to that article, and she described her income and her expenses on a monthly basis. And we're going to look at it and maybe we'll see the forest. I found this letter extremely interesting also because like my family was a blue collar family. We're talking about both people were having college degrees. And before we begin, I just want to give you a quick reminder. The minimum wage in the Soviet Union was about 70 rubles per month. We didn't have a hourly rate, but like a cleaning person would get 70 rubles per month. So that's kind of your comparison point when we start talking about these guys. So the lady worked as a senior lab assistant at Cafedra of Higher Mathematics. So she worked at university at the Department of Higher Math, and her salary was 81 ruble per month. So we need to pause here already because, as I mentioned, cleaning lady was getting 70 rubles per month to mop the floors. This person finished university. She's working like with higher-end math problems, being a senior lab assistant, and she's making only 81 ruble, only 11 rubles more. That was one of the problems in the Soviet Union, that people with the higher education, they weren't compensated, and quite often they made less money than people with no education. Now, her husband worked as a construction engineer, also has a college degree, finished university. His salary is 140 rubles. So combined income of this family is 221 rubles. And just for the comparison, I Googled, and construction engineer in like Michigan gets about $75,000 a year. So after taxes, it's approximately $4,750 per month. And senior lab assistant, it's about $45,000 a year. After taxes, it's about $3,000 per month. So 221 ruble in Soviet Union would be equal to about $7,750 here in America. So for this rate of exchange, 1 ruble equals $35. So what was their housing cost? She says, so she gives the list of all her expenses per month. That's why that letter is so interesting. So she is the math-minded lady. So her numbers just, it really was cool to read that letter. So she says, we pay 15 rubles per month, and it's kvartirная plata, so paying for the apartment rent and including communal services, so including water, natural gas probably, and electricity. So 15 rubles per month, and a family makes 221 ruble per month. So that's about 7% of their combined income, so it's really not too bad, right? 7% of the income goes towards the housing costs, including electrical bill and water bill. And if you do this rate of exchange, as I mentioned, 1 ruble for $35, that would mean the American family would pay for the same apartment $525. So that looks quite cheap if you make $7,700 a month and you pay only $525 per month. So that was our big tree. They pay only 7% of their income for housing, and that's including, as I said, electric bill and everything else. So like, man, they have a lot of money left. They're probably just rolling in dough. So let's take a look now. So this lady continues, I pay every month $12.50 per each kid for the kindergarten. So she pays 25 rubles per month for 2 kids to go to the kindergarten. So she pays almost double for childcare versus her apartment rent. And this is kind of caught me by surprise. I honestly thought that kindergarten was for free in the Soviet Union, but apparently it wasn't the case. I never bothered to ask my mom. So this lady paying quite a bit of money to have to her kids go to kindergarten. And we need to pause here for a second. So the lady's salary was 81 ruble, and she is paying 25 rubles just for daycare. So if she'll be a single, living even in the Soviet Union with cheap housing, just the daycare cost plus an apartment will eat away 50% of her income. So she will be in trouble if she will be single. Her next expense is 10 rubles for public transportation. So they obviously didn't have a car, but both have to take a bus or trolley bus to work and back. So they spend 10 rubles a month just on public transportation. And with their income, this is almost as much as they spend on an apartment. And if we use that ratio of 1 ruble for $35, that means with American family, if they didn't have a car, they will spend $350 every month just riding bus to work and back. So what's next? I found this interesting. So they spend 15 rubles each having lunch at work. So she says that it's 20 to 22 times a month she eats and pays 70 kopecks per meal. And I said that's the cheapest possible. You can't spend less than that to get some food. So together they spend 30 rubles per month to eat at Stolovaya, at the cafeteria at work. So now they're spending double on just, we can call it eating out, than they spend on their apartment rent. This is how this whole thing looks so weird. So now you see those other trees in the forest, in the Soviet forest. Once again, if we apply ratio 1 ruble $35 Soviet income versus American income for exactly the same jobs, that would mean that an American family would be spending just for the cafeterias $1,050 every month. That sounds like a lot of money. And the last line of monthly expense is 10 rubles for cigarettes. So I assume her husband was smoking. And 10 rubles, once again, that's a lot of money. It's the same amount of money that's spending on public transportation for the whole family. So, of course, it'd be a good idea to make husband quit smoking. But if you once again do comparison, it means $350 you spend a month on cigarettes. 10 rubles will get you about 14 packs of Cosmos filtered cigarettes. In the Soviet Union, there were 70 kopecks per month. But for $350, you can get about 50 packs of Marlboros. So buying power in America, it's almost like 4 times higher than in the Soviet Union, like cigarette-wise. So cigarettes were quite expensive in the Soviet Union. So this was her short list of monthly expenses. and they added up together to 90 rubles per month. Daycare, public transportation, housing cost, food, and cigarettes, 90 rubles. So they have 221, 90 rubles going automatically just for expenses like that. But still, we need to count more expenses, like they have to eat at home besides having lunch, and they need to feed their children. And actually, she says also during the month, there is some kind of other random expenses, like someone has a birthday or somebody getting married, so you have to buy them a present. So she said, I figure out I spend another 10 rubles on the random expenses every month. So total like right now is 100 rubles. So 100 rubles gone. They have left 121 rubles. And she says, in order to cook breakfast and dinner and also feed the family on the weekends, Sunday and Saturday, I need about 100 to 120 rubles per month. So they have left 121 rubles. And she says, I need at least 100 to 120 to feed people at home. And then this lady gives the list of what she needs, like minimum to feed her family in a day. So 2 children, 2 adults. She says, I need at least 4 eggs, which is 40 kopecks, 100 grams of butter, 35 kopecks, half of kilogram of bread, 15 kopecks, 100 grams of cheese, 20 kopecks, and 1 kilogram of potatoes, 20 kopecks. Although if you go to the market, like collective farm market, you pay 50 to 60 kopecks instead of 20. I need a half of kilogram of meat, 1 ruble, and 1 kilogram of apples for children, 50, 60 kopecks. So she made it all added up together. So it's 3 rubles per day times 30 days. She needs at least 90 rubles for that. So this is her basic math. So you see, there's nothing crazy there. It's just eggs, butter, bread, cheese, potatoes, meat, and apples. And it's 90 rubles per month. And if we apply that ratio I mentioned earlier, that 1 ruble of Soviet income equals $35 of American income, that means that 90 rubles in food for that basic food will be equal spending $3,150 a month for the family of 4 just eating eggs, butter, bread, cheese, potatoes, meat, and apples. And I looked it up. They say that average American family of 4 spends about $1,500 a month. So, and they probably eat way better than what that lady was talking about in the Soviet Union. So as you see, food was extremely expensive in the USSR. And then the lady continues, so 90 rubles was the list I gave you, just bare minimum. In reality, you need to spend at least 100 to 120 rubles, which means that our monthly income of 221 rubles per month is gone just to pay our monthly expenses like apartment rent, transportation such, plus food. There's no more money left. But then she continues, but our income is stable. It's like it doesn't change, doesn't go up or down. So where should we get money for buying medicines, movie, theaters, cutting hair, fixing appliances, soap, stuff to wash our clothes, and other items that we need for everyday life? I can share a secret. I have to cut on my food and on my lunches in order to have some extra money. And it says, I'm very lucky that my husband doesn't drink wine or beer, doesn't go to restaurants, doesn't go to the soccer game, and even doesn't ask for pocket money. So I'm like in that regards, but said some men somehow find money for all of that. And then she continues, and I'm not even talking about where can we find money to buy clothing, furniture, go somewhere on the weekend, go somewhere on vacation, to buy books, give presents to relatives, buy newspapers or toys for our kids. How can we buy clothing for our kids? Because, they rip it, they lose it, and it's 2 of them. What about, for me, I'm a young woman, I would like to dress nicely. What about my husband? So she kind of sounds desperate here. And her desperation reminded me of that Soviet-era joke, which actually came up with the movie called Brilliantova Ruka, the diamond arm, that one guy wished the other guy, wish him bad luck, but he said, I wish you to live only on your salary. чтоб ты жил на одну зарплату. So you don't have any additional income from anything because you'll be starving just like these people here. So here you are. We have a family of 4. Both are white-collar workers. So in America, they'll be making close to over $100,000 a year, almost $8,000 a month after taxes, and would probably be having a nice house, a couple of cars, probably be struggling a little bit with 2 kids, but even in Soviet Union, sounded like people were in really poor shape financially, even having very inexpensive housing. But the biggest difference between American family, once again, construction engineer and senior labor assistant making a little bit over $100,000 a year versus Soviet family that were making 221 rubles a month. Soviet family never worried about their housing. I bet you American family still worries about paying mortgage in time, make sure they won't get kicked out of their house, while Soviet people also being poor, but they never had to worry about that part. Housing was so cheap that you always had plenty of money to cover that expense. And it makes me wonder about the husband. Construction engineer, young family, struggling financially, wife wants to wear nice clothes, she wants to dress her kids nicely. How long will it take for that guy to give up and start stealing from work, reselling items, having some additional income so his family could do better than just live from, as we say in America, from paycheck to paycheck? Of course, in Soviet Union, everyone was getting paid with cash. We had no checks. Okay, my friends, well, thank you for watching Ushanka Show. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something new. As always, don't forget to like it. We'll talk to you soon. До свидания. Goodbye.
Sergey wrote a book based on diaries he made when he was first in the United States. And as I understand, this is just volume 1, right? That's correct. He's going to have multiple volumes coming out. Well, I said, since Sergey is kind enough to come up and speak with us, I bought the book. I said, I might as well read this. I read this in one sitting. 2 hours, 2.5 hours. I just couldn't put it down. It was so fascinating because your writing is very compelling, for one. And his story is very interesting for 2. It's really interesting. We've lived here our whole lives. We don't have that perspective. It's just so interesting to hear someone else's perspective about what we take for granted. So I hope you really tune in and listen to what he has to say. It's a very interesting, very informed perspective. Sergey is not a historian. He's an electrical engineer by trade, but I find that he has a depth of understanding on history, economics, culture. So just a very observant fellow and a great storyteller. So